Today, my name is Colette Adwin, and I am here today to talk to you about all kinds of brand purpose things, three in particular that most people do not talk about. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is that branding generally has a lot of misconceptions about it. And that it's such a huge topic that when two people are having a conversation about a brand, they might actually be having two very different conversations and not realize it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be running a series of mini masterclasses, and I'm going to be breaking down the different components of a brand so that when we're talking, you can get some clarity. And it means that if you're hiring a designer, whether that's me or somebody else, or you're building your own brand yourself, or designing your brand, or building your content, or writing your content, you're able to understand which questions to ask at which time so that you can make the creative and structured strategic decisions that you need to make in your business. So let me just squish now, my cursor's on the wrong screen. There we go. So let's move on. Okay, so we're going to go on to know your brand purpose. So the reason we're starting with purpose is that, to me, purpose is the most essential element of any brand. So what? Hello, Louise. I'm sorry. I'm not going to look at comments until a bit later on. Okay, I'm not going to look at comments. Okay, so the purpose is the most important part of your brand. And to complete this mini masterclass, there are a few things that you are going to need. You're going to need a pen, some paper, some courage, and some time to reflect. Okay, so that might seem a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe you're excited by the idea of needing courage, or maybe you are not looking forward to needing courage. I don't know. But when you are building a brand, you need to have some courage. Okay, so your brand is the single most important investment you can make in your business. I've chosen this quote out of many, many, many others because, one, I know it to be true, and two, because it's also one of the most neglected parts of building a business. Very, very often when we build our brand, we're thinking about our customers, which is obviously very important. All of these things are important, but we're thinking about our customers, our products, our services, our marketing, our sales, our targets, our goals. We're thinking about all of these different moving parts, but the one thing that unifies every aspect of your business is your brand. And the clearer you are about your brand, the easier it is to make decisions that are aligned with the core elements of your brand. And now, for some reason, I've got a bit of a runny nose. Is it spring? So if you have a pen and paper, brilliant. If not, feel free to write in the comments. I want you to write the words, "My brand is about," and then just dump whatever comes out of your head right now in this moment. I'm well aware that when we're talking about brands, it moves, right? It morphs, it changes, it evolves. So what you say today about your brand and what it's about may well change a week from now, a month from now, 5 years from now, as it should. But our purpose today is to find the purpose, the bit that doesn't change. So let's have a look a little bit now what you think your brand is about right now, right? And the chances are you already know, right? You already know what is your brand about. So please let me know in the comments, if you're feeling comfortable, what is your brand about right now? And if you don't want to write it in the comments, that's absolutely fine. Or if you're watching on replay, just write down on a piece of paper, "My brand is about," and then just dump out your thoughts, right? And you can do this pretty much once a week, this little exercise. The more you do it, the clearer you become. So Eileen is saying that her brand is about practicality, simplicity, and innovative. So innovation. I really like that. It's clear, it's distinct, and actually you do portray that in your content, which is a really important point about understanding what your brand is about, because it helps you understand what it is you need to talk about, what your message is, and what your customers need to hear. Okay, before we continue, I need to clarify my own perspective on what a brand is. If you were to get 100 global experts on branding in a room, they would likely not be able to reach a consensus about what a brand is. They would, however, probably agree on a couple of core principles about a brand and branding. So I'm going to break those down a little bit, and I'm going to talk about how I view a brand so that we're all on the same page, right? And the reason that I do this is because obviously if you understand how I view a brand, even if you view it differently, which is perfectly okay, obviously, it helps us to have a foundation and a place to build from, and it helps to spark ideas. And that is what we're about. So one of the main core principles about a brand is that a brand is divided into its internal components and its external components. So we're going to start with some external components, and I want you to think about what external components do you think are important to a brand? Like when you think about a brand, what external components are there? What kind of things do you think make an external component or an external element of a brand? My current brand is loading, or will be after some time with you. What a brilliant comment. I'm really sorry, Facebook user. I'm only seeing Facebook user as your name. I think there is a link up here where you can click on it and it will give you, it'll mean I can see your name. But for now, I'm just going to have to call you Facebook user. Okay, so there are internal and external components. So one of the external elements of a brand is how a brand looks, the look of a brand. And that would obviously include things like, oh, hi, Kerry. That would include things like your logo, your colors, your fonts. It would include things like your brand images, your content, your social media content, your pamphlets, your brochures. All of these things are external components which help shape the way your brand looks to the outside world. Another external brand element is the sound of your brand. So that might be, you might have a particular jingle associated with your brand, particularly if you're a YouTuber. You might have a particular style of music that you associate with your brand. And actually, even if you don't have music associated with your brand, it can be a nice exercise to think about, if you did have music, how would it sound? What genre would you use? What kind of rhythm or beat, what speed would make up the sound of your brand? It can be a nice exercise to do. But also incorporated with the sound of the brand is the tone of voice that you use. Are you, does your brand sound exciting? Does your brand sound relaxing, right? So the sound of your brand is equally an external element, and both the look and sound are aspects of the brand that are projected by the brand itself. They are the bits that the brand puts out into the world. Other external elements include the feel of the brand, how the brand feels, the emotions associated with the brand, how the customer feels when they interact with the brand or when they see the brand for the first time, and then the flavor or even the scent of the brand. So obviously if you're a perfumery, but by the flavor of the brand, I mean the general ambiance, right? The experience of the brand. So what is the customer or the audience experience when they encounter the brand? So these other two, so you'll often hear, so there's a famous quote by Jeff Bezos, and he said, let me get this right. A brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Personally, I think it can be quite telling about a brand to know what the brand says about their customers when the customers are not in the room. I think that can be quite telling too, but that's a different masterclass altogether. But this concept of branding has been widely adopted. And in fact, not too long ago, I too really kind of got my claws into that. And I used it as a way to jumpstart how to create a look and feel or style for brands to mirror, reflect, or preview those feelings that are generated within the brand. And it can be a really, really useful exercise. But what's interesting is, whereas the look and the sound as an external element are projected by the brand itself, the feel, flavor, and ambiance of the brand are experienced by the customer. So we have this seesaw of concepts, this kind of balancing of ideas within the brand, where on the one hand, the company's putting out information, and on the other hand, the customers are experiencing it. And the idea is that these two aspects of the brand, the internal and the two core parts of the projected and the experienced elements of the external elements of the brand, they will reflect each other, they will mirror each other, and they will balance each other, so that when the customer buys something or interacts with the brand, they know what to expect. They're not disappointed, and they get exactly what they have already experienced in the look and the sound of the brand. If there is any misalignment, if there is any imbalance, so for example, the brand projects one thing and the customer experiences another thing, that can be damaging to the brand. It can affect the brand reputation, it can affect the brand image, sometimes in a positive way if the brand over delivers, obviously, but very often it can happen in the opposite way, where our customers can be expecting one thing and they get something completely different. And it's not necessarily because the company's done a bad job. They might have done an absolutely brilliant job. It's just that what they communicated at the beginning was not what the customer expected. So how can you avoid that? Well, that's where the internal elements of the brand take precedence. The clearer you are about the internal aspects of your brand, the easier it is to find alignment and balance with the external elements of your brand. And there are two core parts of the internal aspect of your brand, and that is your brand purpose, which is what we're going to be looking at today, and your brand promise, which we'll be looking at some point in the future, probably in April. So when you're thinking about your brand purpose, I just want you to kind of jot down for a little while what you think your brand purpose is, or what is brand purpose. So write in the comments if you can. What is brand purpose? What do you see brand purpose as being? How do you interpret brand purpose? I'd be really interested to know your thoughts about brand purpose at this stage in the class. What does purpose mean to you? What does purpose mean to your brand? And what is, if you know, your brand purpose? Earlier on, I asked you to say, my brand is about, right? And obviously that links into what your brand purpose is. But if I was to say, what is your brand purpose? Would it be the same answer? Or would you have something different to offer? Before we continue, I want to stress a very important point. Your brand purpose is not your why. I have no idea what brand purpose is. Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, we're going to get into it. Most people don't, to be honest, Aileen. Most people don't. Just let me double check I didn't accidentally pull out my my microphone there. So brand purpose is not your why. So you'll often hear on social, well, I see it quite a lot on social media, but that might just be that I'm interested in this topic, so I get fed a lot of information about this. But I often see copywriters, coaches, marketers, business people asking people, you know, what's your business why? Why are you in business? Why do you do this? Why do you sell what you do? Tell people your why. Tell people your why story. And although this is important and relevant, that's just a story. I don't mean to denigrate it or you know, tell you that your story doesn't mean anything. Of course it does. I have a million whys for being here, but none of them are my brand purpose. Your why is your reason for being here, and reason and purpose are not synonyms. They're not words that mirror each other. Your reason is your explanation or your justification for having done something or for doing something right now. Your purpose is what you intend to change. It's what you intend to change and how you intend to change it. And when you can, I'm not going to say this is easy, because it isn't, and it can be a process. It can take a couple of weeks, months, sometimes even years to understand this. But the more you work on it, the more you try to identify, well, what is it that I'm trying to change? So one key thing is when we're talking about business, we'll talk about what your business does, the services that it offers, the benefits, the outcomes, the products, the services, and we talk about all these different components of your business, but we don't necessarily think about what's the point? Like, what is your business there for? What are you changing for people or society or the world or yourself? Whatever, it doesn't matter who you're doing it for, to be honest. What matters is that you are changing something. What do you intend to change? That's the core of your purpose. What I intend to change, make it the norm that personal stylists earn decent money in their business. How awesome is that? That is absolutely brilliant. Write it in big, bold pen all over your wall, paint it, daub your walls in it, print it out, like make a poster about it, have it everywhere, have it as your screensaver on your phone. It's really important to know what it is you are setting out to change. Now, if you're not sure what it is you're setting out to change, or you feel like you can go deeper or there's more that you can explore, it's really helpful to break purpose down into two parts. My brand purpose is to help mission-centered business owners to have greater visibility and therefore increase their impact, because if no one can see them, then they can't help people. Yeah, that's brilliant. So that's kind of a mission statement, right? So your brand purpose is to increase impact for business owners. I'm not 100% clear, but we'll get into that. So don't worry about it, Facebook user, possibly Kerry. Like, your brand purpose is to what? Like, what's it for? What's it for, really? What are you changing? If you're not sure, take a look at your brand values. So this is one part of brand purpose that really isn't talked about. One part is obviously the fact that brand purpose is not your why story. The other part of your brand purpose is your values, right? So understanding your brand values. And by this, I don't mean your personal values. Obviously, your personal values are going to influence how you run a business, how you build a business, how you operate a business, and how you build a brand. But your brand values are very separate from this, even if you are a personal brand. I'm going to have a little look at something that I do with people in Poster-Grid Academy and my clients, at how we break down your brand values. One of the first things we do is we create a list, or I offer a list of hundreds of values. So you just brainstorm all the values that you can, as many different values. You can get them online, you can Google them, you can download them, or I actually have a, I'll have to try and find the link. I actually have a values definer, which you can get for $5. I'll drop a link later, with a list of about 200 different values that you can go through to start you off with. And when you've got that list, you can then identify which of those values are most relevant to your business and your purpose, how you see your purpose right now, right? So even if it's not clearly defined, it doesn't matter. But which values, and you can have still lots of them. You might have like 20, 30 of them, I don't know, different values that feel relevant or important in terms of how your brand feels, operates, needs to move forward in the future, right? So we're thinking about the future here. This is brand purpose, right? And then we need to isolate 5 of them, right? Now, this is quite hard, and it can be quite hard. But when you're doing this, you need to be thinking about, well, hang on a second. When I'm working with my customers, you know, which 5 are the most important when I'm delivering my services? Which 5 are the most important when I'm interacting with my team? Which 5 really are the most important? And look at it as somebody external to your business. So even if perhaps kindness is one of your personal core values, you might realize that kindness doesn't necessarily fit into your brand values. That doesn't mean that your brand is going to be unkind. It just means that it's not core to what you're doing or what you're changing, right? So whatever it is think about, what are you changing, and isolate the 5 values that fit in with that. It can be tricky. The values definer actually walks you through how to do this. And then the next stage is to eliminate. Now, the elimination process is quite tricky. When you're eliminating your brand values, a good exercise that you can do is to place your 5 core values down in a list and compare them against each other. So again, I'll put a link later about the values definer. But again, if you are going through your 5 things, you can compare them against each other and just ask, if I could only have, like, so say you could pick any 2, this one or this one in my brand, which one would I eliminate, right? And just keep doing that. Just keep going through. Which ones could you eliminate and still have your brand identity solid and whole? And bring it down to 2. Now, it can be quite difficult to do, but once you bring your brand values down to 2 core principles, you know which aspect of your brand is never going to change. They are fundamental. You commit to them. You commit to them being part of your purpose. For example, the poster grid values I thought were going to be different to what they were. I imagined creativity might be one of them, but actually the core values for, well, creativity is one of them, but even so, it wasn't as significant as I thought it would be. It didn't score as highly as I thought it would be when I did the values definer. But what happened in poster grid was the core values were creativity and learning. And what that means is that every piece of content I put out into the world, every product I create, every service I offer has to in some way inspire creativity or be presented in a creative way. And it has to facilitate learning or move people forward in some way. If my content and my products and my services don't fall into those 2 values, then they don't align with my brand. And I'm going to have a problem in communicating. How do I know they are the core? The best thing you can do, to be honest, I'll put a link in for the values definer. It takes work, Sebastian. It does take work. It's a really good question. You have to separate yourself from your brand, like list them out and just eliminate. Think, what can I do without? What can't I do without? What can my brand not survive without? Right? That's basically the root. Know what it is you want to change and think about what your brand can't do without in order to affect that change. Right? So once you've got your core brand values, the next stage of purpose is obviously to look at the future. And so to do this, we have to generate a vision for our brand. We need to know where it is we're going, right? So how do you see your brand in the future? Is it a big multinational corporation that's like spread across the world? Is it, a local based business that is well respected in the community and allows you, a lot of free time to do what you enjoy? I mean, like when you're looking at the change that you aspire to make, where does that change take place? Where does it happen, right? And what is that change that you are making? What is it, right? And why are you making that change? Now, this is the point that people will often get stuck on. This is the reason point. This is people say, oh, because this happened to me and I learned how painful it is, and so I want to make a change so other people don't go through that. Or in my case, when I started like running businesses, 15 years ago, I would lose so much time trying to create, like in those times, there wasn't really social media, but I would spend loads of time making brochures and pamphlets and leaflets and posters and loads of time. But I didn't know enough about how to communicate my message. I didn't know enough about branding. And so I was all over the place and I lost a lot of time. So, one of the things I want to do is take out that mystery aspect of branding and just make it simple for people. But also think about, why does the change even need to happen? Like, why? Think about this. So in 1976, I think it was, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak got together and they wanted to it like introduce a home computer that was easy to use, so that people everywhere could have a computer in the house and it would be easy to use. A computer in the house and in the office, actually. That was what they wanted. That was their vision. And it was because they wanted it themselves, right? And at that time, you've got to remember that computers didn't even have monitors back then, right? So this was a massive thing for Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. They didn't sit down and think, well, we're called Apple. Maybe we should have a picture of an apple as our logo. Or that's too simple. Maybe we should have a tree, or maybe we should have some story or some symbol behind it. Or maybe the apple should be falling, or maybe the apple should be... They didn't sit there and talk about what their logo would look like. They didn't sit there and ponder what colors and fonts they were going to use. They didn't sit there and think about, what the computer might look like one day. They talked about where they were going, what they wanted to change, and why they wanted it. And then they also looked at who that change was for. Who were they bringing along with them on that journey? They went to Radio Shack because they knew the geeks there might actually be interested. I'm not saying geeks in a derogatory way. I'm a geek, right? They knew that. They knew who would be most interested in their development. They were not doing this because they were just building some business. They were doing this because they had a vision. They had the vision before they had the brand. And it's the vision that generates the brand. And, Steve Jobs, when we're looking at values, he, dropped out of college, but he kept going in anyway and going to like calligraphy classes and that kind of thing, because one of his core values was that things looked good, right? All of those values are really, they're embedded in every aspect of Apple, the company, right? So those values were at the core, and then they had a vision. And they didn't know when it was going to happen, but they knew that they had to start now. And that is the most important thing. You start your vision, you create a picture for your vision, you map out what it is you want to change, you create a map to get there. You know why you're doing it, you know who you're going to bring along. You don't need to know how you're going to do it. You don't need to know that yet. Don't worry about it. It's not important. That comes later. We'll talk about that on another day. But right now, you just need to know where it is you're going, what it is you're changing, why it needs to change, who's going to benefit, and when you're going to start doing it. And actually, the answer to the last question is now. Right? But this, of course, is only part of what a brand does. Once you've got your vision and your values in place, what that helps to do is to generate your brand voice. It helps to refine your message. It helps you to understand, what you're saying and why you're saying it. It gives you a purpose behind every piece of content you put out. It helps you understand the energy behind what you're saying. It helps you understand how you're going to look and how you're going to sound, right? That's what your values and vision are going to do. But again, we'll look at brand voice on another day, right? On another day. All of this is part of a much bigger picture. But once you understand your brand purpose, you can build that picture for yourself, and we can fill in all of the gaps. There's a lot of gaps there to build your brand purpose, and get your voice out there to make the change that needs to be made, that you are here to make. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to let me know. I'm actually astounded that I finished at exactly 13:30. I really am. I thought I would overrun, so I was talking really fast. Nice, the 5 W's to your brand values. There you go. Is that V's? Yes. So there's a lot more V's, Sebastian. This goes on. So this little infinity thing here, it goes on. There's lots more to come. This is a tiny, tiny fraction of what's to come. What I probably should add is that your vision should feel scary. Your vision, it shouldn't feel comfortable. It should scare you a little bit. When you're looking at your vision, you're probably going to doubt that it's achievable. I'm pretty sure Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, even though they knew it could be done in their minds, they probably didn't know how. It probably felt scary to get it out there, but they did it anyway. And that's what we can do. Your brand vision and your brand values form your purpose, and your purpose is not the same as your brand promise, which is what we'll be discussing in April. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I am going to wrap it up. Oh, you're welcome, Sebastian. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I'm going to disappear now and get on with my day. I'm going to hang out with my son for a little bit, and I will be back. I actually can't remember which date I'm going to be back. Let me check. When am I back? When am I back? I think my next one is April. I did have March 30th, but actually I'm just going to do one a month, probably the beginning, first Thursday of the month or something. So yeah, April the 6th. I'll be back on April the 6th, and we will be discussing your brand promise. Very exciting. Of course, follow me on here, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. If you would like more, next week I am running a one-day workshop on how to create a seamless feed on Instagram so that all of your content has a clear message and is clearly recognized. It has a clear brand identity. So that masterclass is next Wednesday or next Thursday. I think it's next. God, I can't remember. It's next. I can't remember. And it's I think it's 350 quid or 380 quid, and you can come in and it's like a whole day with me and just a few people. It's not big. We go deep in on your brand, on your content, and I teach you a pretty incredible technique to develop show-stopping content. So if you're interested in that, I'll pop a link in the comments after this as well. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and bye-bye. Oh, wrong screen.